Hi. So now less than 48 hours to go for the final exam. As you are into the last round of your revision, you should also plan your strategy for the exam day, right? So in this video, we are going to discuss that. Let's begin. So let's divide this video into three parts. In the first part, let's discuss how to prepare for that final day. Then we will discuss what to expect from the examination, how to approach. So let's begin the first part. This portion is primarily for people who are appearing in such examinations for the first time. So let's quickly see the basics. Check your admit cards properly and read the instructions written on it very carefully. Please note that if you do not have valid documents, you will not be allowed to appear for this exam. In particular, you need 2 admit cards, one for the morning shift, one for the afternoon shift. You need an ID proof to be carried in original. So whether it is PAN card, carry the original PAN card. If you have passport, you will have to carry the original passport. You need the photocopy to at least 2 photocopies of this ID proof. And you need your photograph. So how it will work is that, for example, let's say this is your admit card. There will be some space here for pasting a photograph. So you should paste your photograph here itself. Take 1 photocopy of your admit card and staple it along with this admit card. And it is a common instance to see people on the examination day in the examination hall searching for Fevistick or glue stick to be able to paste their photograph. Okay, so don't do those things. You can paste it even now and staple it with your staple the admit card with its photocopy using a stapler here, right? And photo has to be pasted. Okay. Now reach the center well in time. You already know that there is flood-like situation in many parts of India, especially northern India. There are reports of flood in Delhi as well as in UP as well as in other parts of the country. So make your arrangements properly to reach the examination center well before the stipulated time. Now, do not think when exam is starting, till when you will be allowed to enter. Those things are not required. If IBPS had to tell you those things, they would have told you in the admit card only, right? So they've given you this time. Reach before this time. That's what you should keep in mind. You will be asked to keep your bag outside your examination room, right? And so that's why you should carry only absolute essential items in your bag. See, the moment you reach your examination hall, there will be an entry start time. Once the entry starts, at the gate, you will be asked to show your admit card. So you admit card with a pasted photograph and attached photocopy that should be in your hands. Show it at the gate, then they will allow you to enter. Then there will be some process. They'll have to allot you which room to go. So either outside your center, there will be a list placed wherein you can see where you can go, or in some centers, you will have to go to a desk. They will see your details and mark on it and write the room number in which you have to go. In the examination hall, you will not be allowed to carry your bag. You have to carry only the essential stuff, which is your admit card, pasted, a photograph, and 1 photocopy of it. Apart from that, you can carry a pen, mask, sanitizer, 1 transparent water bottle. Similarly, if you're carrying a pen, it should be transparent. Don't carry fancy pens. Carry simple ones which are transparent. Similarly, water bottle should be transparent, right? Other things they will tell you to keep outside. IBPS or RBI will not take responsibility of any of your belongings. Okay, so carry only bare essential things. Then once you reach the examination hall, you will have to undergo a process of registration. How will it happen? Just hand over your admit card to their representative. They will do some scans. You click their photograph to ensure who is giving the exam so that they have the details till a later stage. And once that registration process is complete, they will allot a seat to you. Once you reach your seat, photograph which they just clicked will be displayed on the computer screen. Make sure that the photograph is yours. That is, you are appearing in that exam on your behalf only. Just make sure. Okay. So once that happens, then your process of examination will begin. So if 7:30 is your reporting time, then by the time you reach your seat, complete your registration, all that, it will take some time. So let's say, only as an example, let's say that examination starts at 8:15 a.m. Okay. That means if you reach your seat, let's say at 7:45 itself, then you cannot log into the system before a certain time. I think around 10 minutes before that. So whatever the examination time is, if it is 8:15, whether it is 8:30, around 10 minutes before that, you will be able to log in. If you reach your seat before that, just sit on that seat, relax, put your head down, meditate, concentrate, whatever fits best in your case, you can do that. Now, how to go about during the exam? Also be aware that in the photograph which will be clicked there and displayed on your computer screen, you might look a little less beautiful than you actually are. Right? So don't worry about that. The purpose of that photograph is only to identify you in case required at any stage of recruitment process. Now, what to expect from the exam? As you already know, you have to appear for 2 papers. Paper 1 on economic, 100 marks, 2 hours duration. After this paper completes, there will be a short break, and then the paper 2 will begin again of 100 marks and 2 hours duration. Now, we already know that before these papers, there will be a set of instructions which will be displayed on our computer screen. Please make sure you read those instructions properly and understand them. If something is not clear, try to get more clarity on that point, of course, within the limits. Okay. Now, next, you might be wondering whether there will be sections or not. So, we already know that there are 65 questions, 35 questions of 2 marks and 30 questions of 1 mark. So, this becomes 100 marks. The next question is, will there be sections? Most probably, these 65 questions will be divided into sections. But how many sections? We do not know. Whether there will be 3 sections, 2 sections, 4 sections, we do not know about it. Honestly, it does not even matter. Whatever number of sections are there, you just have to appear in the best possible way, and that's what you should be concentrating on at this point of time. Now, next question is, what kind of questions to expect? See, when I asked this question to my statistics professor in undergraduation, this is the reply I got. He told me that exam जिंदगी की तरह ही होगा, इसमें ज़्यादातर परेशानियां सॉल्वेबल होंगी, मॉडरेट परेशानियां थोड़ी होंगी और उससे भी थोड़ी मेजर परेशानियां होंगी. And I think that's what you can expect for your exam also. During the examination, if there are, let's say, 65 questions, out of these 65 questions, most of the questions will be manageable for you. So depending upon your level of preparation and other things, you might be able to do 30, 35, 40 questions without too much of a problem. The fight will be in the remaining questions. For example, let's say there might be 20 questions or 25 questions or 30 questions which fall in the category of moderate to difficult. It might be even lesser active. Okay, but there will be some questions which will be moderate to difficult. And why is that? See, you already understand this is a competitive exam. If the question paper is easy, the cutoff will be high. If the question paper is difficult, cutoff will be low. No examiner wants to see cutoff of, let's say, 90%, and no examiner wants to see cutoff of 10%. So the purpose of the examiner is to have a cutoff somewhere in between, around 40%, 45%, 50%. That's what looks decent when we see it. Okay. So accordingly, the question paper will be set. There will be some easy questions. In fact, most of the questions will be easy, some moderate and some difficult questions. So the point of discussion is that when you see those easy questions, attempt them quickly so that you have some time, some extra time remaining for those moderate and a little difficult ones. Next, do not go in the examination with some preconceived thoughts, preconceived notion, thinking के एग्जाम तो ऐसा ही आएगा, ये सिर्फ न्यूमेरिकल होंगे, ये भी मत सोच के जाओ, सिर्फ डिस्क्रिप्टिव सिर्फ theoretical questions होंगे, ये भी मत सोच के जाओ. Go ahead without any expectations, because the problem with expectations is if you go in with some expectations and the moment you see that your expectations are not being met, people begin to panic, right? So the best strategy, in my opinion, is do not go in with any sort of expectations. Tell yourself that you have studied economics for maybe 2 years or 5 years, right? If you have studied a subject for so long, you know a lot about it and you are prepared for this paper as well. So you will be in a good position after the phase 1 exam if you can execute well during these 4 hours. That's what you should be telling yourself, and that's what you should be planning for when you are thinking about it now. There are bound to be some questions which will fall in moderate to difficult category. That means कुछ questions तो ऐसे होंगे जो आपको नहीं आते हैं, लेकिन अगर वो question आपके competitor को भी नहीं आते होंगे तो कट ऑफ को छेड़ेंगे भी नहीं, right? So you are not targeting to score 100 in the economics paper. Therefore, if you see some moderate questions, if you see some difficult questions, do not panic. कोई बात नहीं, 5 क्वेश्चन 4 क्वेश्चन मुश्किल है, नहीं भी होंगे तो भी कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं आएगी. आपने लास्ट ईयर की कट ऑफ देखी है, लास्ट ईयर का स्कोर कार्ड भी देखा है. हाईएस्ट वाज अप्रॉक्सीमेटली 75. सो 25 मार्क्स का मार्जिन तो पिछली बार भी था जो लोग आराम से छोड़ सकते थे. सिमिलरली 30, अगर आपके 60, अगर आपके 70 भी होते, 65 भी होते, still it was a very good score last time, right? So the bottom line is there will be some margin. So if you do not know all the questions, do not panic. जितने questions आते हैं अच्छे से attempt करो. You should already plan. At least you should have some idea how many questions you want to attempt and how many questions you are okay to leave. You will discuss that as we move ahead. Okay. So this is about the economics paper. Now let's talk about the English descriptive paper briefly. So we've already been told that in the English descriptive paper, there will be 4 questions. अब कौन से questions आएंगे? Again, do not go ahead with any preconceived mindset, but generally, most probably, there will be a question on essay, there will be a question on precis writing, and most probably one reading comprehension also. In fact, in the previous years, these were the 3 questions which were being asked. Now, in the information handout which is being released, they have specified other things also. For example, questions to test vocabulary. Also, they have specified formal letter. They have also specified paragraph writing. So, any 4 of these can be asked. Do not go ahead with the thinking कि यही आएगा या वही आएगा. They can tell you to write one essay and they can also tell you to write a paragraph on some other part. Right? So, just be mentally prepared for all these eventualities. Next question can be, how much time to devote to each of these? Right? How much time to devote? Now, again, what I was told by one of my professors was that think in terms of how many marks you have. So let's say if you have the entire paper of 100 marks, and let's say you have 120 minutes, right? So that means if you just rearrange these things properly, that means if you write it like this, 1 mark is equal to divided by 100, so this is 1.2 minutes. Now, अगर 1 mark का कोई question है, so you have this much time. On the other hand, let's say if you have a question of 10 marks, then you have 12 minutes for it. If you have a question of 40 marks, then you have 48 minutes for it. This is what should be at the back of your mind. If you are preparing for essay, if you are writing essay, and let's say it comes out to be of 30 minutes or whatever, 40 minutes, you should know how much time you want to devote to it. Because if you do not plan it properly, it will get exceeded. Now, it is a common practice for the essay time limit to get exceeded by students. For example, if you plan to write it within 35 minutes, it is a possibility that you might end up spending 45 minutes. So if that happens, again, I'm telling you, do not panic. If that happens, you will have to cut down 5 minutes of your remaining question. For example, you can cut down 5 minutes on reading comprehension and you can cut down 5 minutes of your precis writing. I'd suggest that do not plan giving it too much initially. So for example, if you think of spending 55 minutes on essay only, and if this exceeds by 10 minutes, then you are going to be in a difficult situation. So try to complete it in as less time as possible and have some margin, because in essay, people do get to exceed the time limit. Next, which question should you attempt first? Should you attempt essay? Should you attempt precis writing and all that? Personally, I prefer to attempt essay first because I know that if time gets exceeded, I have other things to make up. On the other hand, if you begin with reading comprehension and you end up spending 5-10 minutes extra on reading comprehension, because that happens when we are writing the first question, then we like to spend time on it, think of more beautiful words to write, that those things happen. And if you end up spending 10 minutes extra here, then you'll have lesser time for essay. I prefer to go the other way around. Whatever writing part is there, I try to begin with it and complete that first. So I would have completed essay first if that comes, and then whatever other writing portion is there. So if there is a paragraph, then I would might do second. And if there is a if there is a precis writing, that I might do next. If there is no paragraph, if let's say there is essay, then I would do precis writing and according. Then maybe formal writing. Or if formal letter is there, then I might do formal letter at the second place. So just think of these things before you enter the examination, number 1. Second, keep it flexible. Even if you have planned something, if you feel there is a need to change your strategy during the examination period, be flexible to do it, right? Because sometimes what happens is people plan something, and if some unforeseen circumstances come for whatever reason, if they are not willing to be flexible, it hurts their interest. Okay. Like I mentioned about marks here, the same thing applies to economics questions. So if you have 65 questions and those are worth 100 marks, 120 minutes, you can easily calculate how much time you have for 1 marker and 2 marker question. Now, if let's say you end up having, 1 mark, 1 minute, just a hypothetical thing, I'm not calculating, 1 minute for a 1 mark question. Now, if that happens, this does not mean that you will end up spending the entire 1.2 minutes here only. 1 mark question means you have to complete it as soon as possible. So if you know the answer, you can mark it within 15 to 20 seconds. Whatever remaining time is there. So if you had 1.2 minutes here and if you completed within 20 seconds, then you saved 1 minute. That 1 minute is your leverage when you go to other questions. You have this much extra time. So when you are attempting the 1 markers, try to cover them in a way that you gather most of these 1 minute. Okay. Now, generally, at least as per my experience, in RBI DEPR exam, time limit generally is not an issue. That's what I've seen in the exams that I have appeared for. I've seen 3 exams so far. But again, like I said, that does not mean you have to move slowly. You have to, you will be attempting the exam in rounds that we will talk about it. And the first round, you should go smoothly. Do not wait too much. If you do not know a question, skip, move on. The first round has to be really quick. Complete all the questions first. See all the questions. Then you will have a decent idea of where all you can afford to spend time. Okay. So we will discuss that now. But before that, let's just mention about the screen. How the paper will be. For economics paper, I have already shared a link on our Telegram channel telling you what the actual screen will look like. So what the actual platform will look like. The user interface I'm talking. So if you are appearing for the first time, make sure that you just have a look at it so that you are more comfortable. When it will come to the English descriptive paper, then it will be like this. For example, let's say this is your computer screen. It will be divided into 2 parts. On this side will be the questions written. So if it is an essay, they'll give you a few topics. Again, in essay, generally we get 3-4 topics to choose from. There are 4 topics given and we have to write the essay on one of them. Generally, that's what it used to. So those will be written here. And on this side, you will have to type your answer. Again, the role of keyboard will be, the role of mouse will be minimal here. So once you reach here, your cursor is here, then you begin typing. The screen size, the writing screen will not be complete computer screen. So because this portion is blocked by questions and somewhere in this portion only you will be writing. So very frequently there will be a need to scroll left and right, scroll up and down. So just be mentally prepared for it. You can use arrow keys to move up, right, left, right. Also, there will be an option here to collapse this window because on this side we have question palette, right? Question number 1, question number 2, like that. So there will be an option, an arrow to collapse that window. When you are writing, it is a useful feature to make use of that and just collapse this window so you get a little more space to type. Because in this space, when you have to write, let's say 500 words, there will be there will be frequent need to move up and down, see whatever you have written. So plan it accordingly. Just plan accordingly, right? So now let's go ahead and see some tips. Now, going into the examination, you should have a strategy, but you should not be too rigid about it. If there happens to be a situation which makes you believe that you need to change your strategy, then be prepared to do it. This discussion applies more for the economics paper. So attempt the paper in rounds. That means first round, second round, third round, like that. In the first round, the principle is do not get stuck at any question, no matter what the circumstances are. For example, let's say you come across a situation in which for a particular question, you are not sure of the answer. Now that can happen due to various reasons. For example, you do not know the topic at all. So this question has come from a topic about which you have no idea. Let's say from current affairs, they ask you something and you have no idea about it. Or the other possibility is you have some idea and you've tried to solve it, but जो answer आपका आया है ना, वो options में कहीं given ही नहीं है. My suggestion is if any of such situation occur, then do not spend too much time at this point on these questions. Just have a look at it here that you've not made any calculation error, but have a look at it very quickly within a few seconds. If you cannot catch any error, if you are not sure of how to go about, do not spend too much time on this question in the first round. Leave it and come back to it later. So in the first round, you should attempt or you should try to do maximum number of questions about which you have a decent amount of idea. So let's say there is one question which you are not sure and you think, hey, let me just do a blind guesswork. Then no need to do it in the first round. Come back to it later. So in the first round, do only those questions about which you have a decent amount of idea. Let's say with the probability of 0.8 and above, you can say that I am marking the right answer. So attempt only such questions. Let's say you end up attempting 45 such questions in the first round. Okay. And let's say you complete the first round within 1 hour and 10 minutes. Now you have the remaining 50 minutes with you. Go to those 17 questions and attempt. Now, second point. You should make use of the color palette very well. So in the color palette on this side, there will be a color palette. Questions that you mark and you've clicked on saved and next. Those questions will be in green color, green or blue. I think green color. Just check it out. Yeah, green color for sure. So questions that you marked correctly, those will be highlighted in green question number. Questions that you have left and you have not marked any answer, they will be marked in red color. And there is also an option to do mark for review. This means I think I am right, but I still want to come back to this question later on. So you click on this mark for review. There will be an option of mark for review and next. So whatever you've selected, the selected choice will get saved and also it will be in purple color. Now, in the second round, you will not come back to any green question. You have to come back to only red or purple one. So accordingly, make use of the color palette very well. You should know that if you want to come back to any question, you should click on mark for review and next. And if you do not want to come back, you are very sure about that question, click on this save and next option. Okay. So utilize your color palette very well. So in the second round, you will come back to only these remaining 17 questions. Now the next question is, do you intend to mark all these 17 remaining ones? Most probably your answer would be no. Because like we just mentioned, that cutoff is not going to be 100 marks. So you don't have to aim for 100. There is negative marking, so you have to work cautiously. Now, how many questions to guess, that depends on your personal risk appetite. Okay. So let's say out of these 17, let's say there are 7 questions about which you have absolutely no idea. You have no idea about these questions. So each question has 4 marks. So 4 options. Now, if you do a blind guess, there is only, if you are assuming all options to be equally likely, then there is only 0.25 probability of being right. And that's probability. In reality, it will be either right or wrong. So what we mean is that in such questions, there is a high probability of losing out marks, negative marks. On the other hand, there will be some questions about which you feel, okay, I am sure of these 4 given options, I am sure that I can rule out 2 of them. The answer is either this one or this one. Now your probability of being correct has increased. So it makes sense to do some guesswork here. I would do some guesswork, and this is what is called intelligent guess or logical guess. Okay, so you will have to do some guesswork, but that does not mean you have to answer all the questions. Have some understanding, have some idea of how many guessworks you want to do. If you have seen the previous year's paper also, if you appeared for it last year, you will have some idea about what the level was and what the cutoff was. Now, if during the examination you feel that examination is of the same level, then maybe you can take a decision to leave out a few more questions. Otherwise, if you feel the examination is too easy, you might want to leave out a little lesser question. But you will have to leave out some questions. You will have to make some guesswork. That's what you should be prepared to do during the examination. Right? Now, if a person has a higher risk appetite, maybe you can mark, let's say, out of these 17 questions, let's say you have some idea about 10 and no idea about 7. Then maybe out of these 10, you can intend to mark, say, 7, 8, whatever. And out of these 7 about which you have no idea, if you have a very risk appetite, only then mark, let's say, 1, 2 questions. Otherwise, you can even think of leaving all these 7 questions. Whatever the case, but be prepared that you will have to do some logical guessing and you will have to leave out some questions. So just be prepared. Right, so now let's move ahead. Be attentive towards the options given. Use the techniques of elimination wherever feasible. So, for example, let's say you have a question that you're given a utility function and it is of this type. Math 2x plus 3y, and here something is written, let's say 4y plus 10. And you have to maximize this utility function subject to your budget constraint or any question about which you do not have an idea, but you can answer it using the given options. So you know this and you know your budget constraint also that you will be told, and there are 4 options. Now, if you have time, again, this exercise you should not do in the first round. In the first round, the objective is to complete the entire paper well, because when you complete the entire paper, see all questions at least once, you get some idea कि paper का level कैसा है. उसके बाद you can decide to spend more time on other questions. But पहले round में किसी question पे extra time नहीं लगाना. That's my suggestion. So let's say in the second round, you have some time left and you come back to this. Now what you do, you have the given option, XY. तो ये XY आपको 2 चीजें देखनी है. पहला ये कि it should be affordable. That is, it should be within your budget constraint. And the second thing is, you have to compare कि out of these 4 options, which of them is giving the high utility. So you can substitute this and check, you can substitute this and check, this and check, and this and check. The highest utility wala ho, and whatever is, and it should be fitting your budget constraint, that will give you the right answer. Similarly, there can be other situations also. And for example, let's say there is some option which you completely know that ye to ho hi nahi sakta. Then you rule it that out and you look at the remaining ones also. And if you have to guess also, then if you are ruling out at least one, your probability of being correct is increasing. So basically, be mindful of the options. Once you read the question, make sure before marking the answer, you read all the options, even if you know the question. Okay, question padha, charo options, question padhte hi, first you form your own answer in your mind before looking at the question. Then just see all those 4 one. If you're sure कि जो सोचा था वही है, then you mark it. Otherwise also just have a look at, just glance through the remaining options. Sometimes it becomes useful. Okay. So you have to make use of the options and use the techniques of elimination wherever feasible. 1 markers should you attempt first or 2 markers? Honestly, again, this is a personal choice. If you ask me, I am not very good at choosing. So I prefer that jaise in the order in which it is coming, I would like to attempt in that order only, and I will not look to change the order from my. This we have talked about, that we should use a color palette very well. Come back to only red or purple colored questions and not to any other question. If you do not know a topic, let's say you get a question and you do not know anything about the topic from which that question is asked. Sometimes we make the mistake of spending 2-3 minutes on it and then skipping it. Let's try. For example, in the first round only, some question you came across some current affair which you have no idea about, and you're sure कि इसमें तो तुक्का ही मारना पड़ेगा. And you end up spending 2 minutes कि चलो ये मारे, अच्छा ये भी तो हो सकता है ये मारे. That's not a good strategy. If you have to skip a question, do not even spend 20 seconds on it. से पहले देखो, अच्छा नहीं आता है मुझे, move on करो. Right? So sometimes, and this might look very simple, but during the exam we tend to do these things. 2-3 मिनट देखते रहेंगे, उसको निहारेंगे, उसके बाद सोचेंगे छोड़ देते हैं. So when we do that, we have wasted 2-3 minutes. The question में कुछ हासिल भी नहीं हुआ. Right? So avoid these things. And that last, like you mentioned, do not get stuck to any question under any circumstance. जो मर्जी हो जाए, किसी एक क्वेश्चन पे आपको बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम नहीं देना. देखिए, हर बार ऐसा होता है. पिछले 2-3 एग्जाम्स जब से from the time I am in this space, in 2021 also and in 2022 also, I have seen cases wherein people who are capable of clearing the exam could not do well in phase 1 because they wasted too much time on a particular question. For example, I'll tell you, in 2021, there was an ISLM question, and ISLM question, people who studied that topic, they find it simple. It was a numeric. So solve करके y की value या i की value जो भी निकालनी थी, people got it and the answer was not matching. People spent more time on it, then they spent more time. I know people who have spent 15 minutes on that particular question. And the reality was that in that particular questions, the options given were incorrect. So IBPS से भी गलती हो सकती है. But during the examination, you will not be in a position to judge whether it is your mistake or it is IBPS mistake. During the exam, you cannot do anything about IBPS mistake. So rule out that possibility completely. Do not even think ज़्यादा कि ऐसा भी हो रहा है. आप question देखो, have a look at the question. If you think that your answer is not matching and you're not able to catch where you're going, No problem. Leave it at that point of time. Do other questions first. Come back to it with a fresh mind. Sometimes silly mistake that we are doing now, we are not able to see those things if we do not come back with a fresh mind. So come back and have a look at it fresh. शुरुआत से देखो कि अच्छा ये है, ये है, ये है. Then try it. नहीं होता है, then complete all the questions and come back to it at the end only. Right? So attempt the paper in round, and no matter what happens, do not get stuck to any question. At the end, all that I'll tell you is that you already know enough. You've studied economics for many years now. You also prepared for this exam and many other exams in recent past. So preparation-wise, I think you already know enough. What will now matter is that if you can execute it well during those 4 hours, most probably you will find yourself in a good position after phase 1. So that's what your focus should be. Try to attempt the exam well. Do not make silly mistake. Do not do any time mismanagement. Right? So that's what your focus should be now. Now, what if suppose you end up making some silly mistake? And silly mistakes do happen. All of us make it. If I was to prepare for the exam, I might also end up making some silly mistake. So to make sure you try to avoid it, try to revise second time, third time, just be sure of whatever you know, you answer those questions well and do not make any silly mistakes. Just try to make sure of that. But what will happen is once you come out of your phase 1 exam and let's say there is a short break before your phase 2 exam, it is a common phenomena that exam mind में वो सब questions आते हैं. अरे that question, oh I could have answered it that way. अरे that question, I think I have done it wrong. These things can happen. But after your phase 1 exam and after your paper 1 and before paper 2, do not dwell too much on it. If you have made some silly mistakes, most probably your competitor has also made some silly mistakes. Right? That will happen from almost all sides because that's why the cutoff remains low. Right? So these things happen. The requirement is that even if you have made some silly mistakes in one paper, do not spend too much time thinking about it. वो हो गया. At the end of the day, you will have 4 papers. And almost there will be no candidate who will not make any silly mistake in any of these. थोड़ा ऊपर नीचे सबका. At the end of the day, people who are well prepared, people who are able to minimize these silly mistakes, they have a higher probability of that. And you should try to be on that. So with that, I wish you all the very best for this exam. Stay calm, sleep well, and try to do your best.